Have you ever wondered how a single spark can ignite a regional conflict? Let's delve into recent events in the Middle East, where tensions are on the rise following an Israeli airstrike on an Iranian consulate facility in Syria, which resulted in the deaths of 2 Iranian generals. This action has opened a Pandora's box of potential retaliatory measures and broadened the specter of a wider war. It all began on the first day of April, 2024. When Israeli jets targeted the Iranian consulate in Damascus. The casualties of this airstrike were significant and included 13 individuals, among them 2 Iranian generals, the commander of the Quds forces, his deputy, and 5 other Iranian officers. Additionally, 6 members of Iran-backed militia groups operating in Syria and Lebanon lost their lives in the strike. The northern region of Israel frequently endures attacks from southern Lebanon, with cross-border incursions and rocket attacks by the Iranian-backed Hezbollah, often leading to Israeli retaliatory airstrikes against Lebanon and Syria. This cycle of violence has resulted in the displacement of 600,000 Israelis. Iran, a prominent backer of many anti-Israeli proxy groups, has a history of coordinating attacks on Israel through these groups. The meeting held at the consulate was perceived by Israel as a legitimate target, despite its diplomatic status, due to its role in perpetuating conflict against Israel. In response to the airstrike, Iran pledged retaliation against Israel and the United States. The unfolding scenario presents 2 likely courses of action for Iran. The first involves directing Hezbollah to attack Israel, plunging Israel into simultaneous conflict with Hamas and Hezbollah. The second option is to target Israeli embassies globally, prompting the U.S. State Department to issue warnings to its embassies regarding this potential threat. The expectation is that Iran will execute its retaliation through proxies or groups like the Quds Force, targeting Israeli installations or embassies while avoiding a direct confrontation with Israeli or U.S. armed forces. This strategy is designed to minimize the risk of defeat and escalation into a full-blown regional war. However, the question remains: will Iranian retaliation catalyze a cycle of response and counter-response, leading to the very direct conflict it seeks to avoid? Despite its threats against the U.S., Iran is likely to limit its attacks to Israeli targets to prevent U.S. involvement. Given the current disagreements between the Biden administration and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu over Gaza, Iran's most strategic response would be to use proxies against Israel, thereby avoiding actions that could unify the U.S. and Israeli leaders. The current state of U.S.-Israeli relations suggests that the U.S. may not attempt to restrain Hezbollah as it did in October, when it deployed an aircraft carrier battle group to the eastern Mediterranean as a deterrent. The decision by Israel to attack a diplomatic compound was a high-risk maneuver, but considering the attendees of the meeting, it was perceived as a high reward. Israel was likely acting in its own interest to reduce the threat to northern Israel, knowing that Iranian religious leaders do not desire a war with Israel or the U.S. that could jeopardize their power. To summarize, the recent events in the Middle East have escalated tensions and increased the likelihood of a broader conflict. The Israeli airstrike on the Iranian consulate in Syria and Iran's pledge for retaliation have created a volatile situation. The potential for a regional war hangs over the Middle East, with the actions of Iran and Israel in the coming days and weeks likely to determine the course of this potential conflict.